At 18, Yenchio gave up her college entrance exams to marry in order to save her father. Cooking, cleaning, raising kids, and making ends meet, she'd always believed she was doing it willingly. Until 20 years later, when she attended a class reunion. When Yenchio got home, Zhang Xinran's words were still echoing in her mind. Her former best friend, the one she'd gone everywhere with hand in hand, now seemed like she was from a different world after 20 years apart. "And you still know how to come home," her mother-in-law, Li Xiang, called from the kitchen. "A woman like you, going off to some class reunion when you could be getting things done here. What good does that do?" Li Xiang was always like this. Yenchio didn't respond, heading straight for the bedroom. She heard her mother-in-law's muttering and the clanging of pots and pans as she walked away. "Don't mind her. She just has a sharp tongue," her husband Wang Yong said as he looked up from his phone, leaning back on the bed. "So, did you see any of your old high school friends?" "Yeah," Yenchio nodded. "Even Zhang Xinran, the one you always talked about." "She's doing well." Yenchio paused, glancing at Wang Yong, then added, "She's a CFO at a publicly traded company now. She looks completely different, all dressed up and glamorous. I barely recognized her."
Oh.
"She looks way younger than me," Yenchio continued. "Even though she's a year older. Well, she has the means to take care of herself. You could look like that too if you put in the effort," Wang Yong said absent-mindedly, his eyes already back on his phone. "Could I, though?" Yenchio picked up the small mirror on her nightstand and scrutinized her reflection. No, it wasn't the same. It would never be the same. Zhang Xinran had followed the path they'd once dreamed about together, while Yenchio had long since lost herself to the daily grind of ordinary life. "If you wanted to go to college, it's still not too late," Zhang Xinran's words replayed in her mind, igniting a spark deep within her. "Honey," Yenchio turned to Wang Yong, clenching her fists, I want to go to college." Wang Yong responded automatically, before his tone shifted to surprise. "What did you say?" "I said, I want to take next year's college entrance exams." With the initial words out, Yenchio found the rest easier to say. "Yingying's grown up now, and we're not struggling financially. I want to go to college." "What's gotten into you?" Wang Yong studied her for a moment, realizing she wasn't joking. His eyebrows furrowed. "College exams are for kids." "You're not a kid anymore, Yenchio." "I'm not that old. I just turned 38. Yenchio changed into her pajamas and climbed into bed. "Xinran's right. Life's too short to leave regrets behind. I missed my chance to go to college back then, and it's always been a regret. College doesn't have an age limit now, so why can't I give it a try?" "Give it a try?" Wang Yong chuckled. "Yenchio, you know how hard college exams are? Every year, thousands of young people don't make it. You haven't cracked open a book in 20 years, and you think you can do it." "I know I have a lot to catch up on," Yenchio said, leaning closer. "But I still have almost a year." Xinran said there are lots of prep courses nowadays, and if I don't understand something, I can even ask the interns at her company. Back in school, I was a top student. Maybe I can do it with some work. "And then what? What's the point?" Wang Yong asked dismissively. "Plenty of people are college graduates now. You're a vegetable seller. No one's going to hire you as a CFO."
But...
"All right, let's sleep," he said, turning off his phone and rolling over. "We have to get up early to buy vegetables tomorrow." "Honey, I really do want to go to college." Yenchio lay on her back, staring up at the plain white ceiling, her voice soft. "The other day, when I was delivering vegetables near the university and saw those students heading to class with their books, you don't know how envious I felt. I know I'm not young anymore, and I don't expect much after graduating. But even if I keep selling vegetables my whole life, I don't want to take that regret with me to my grave." Xinran's right. College isn't just about getting a good job or making more money. The more you learn, the more you see. When you see more, you broaden your mind, and you start to understand what you really want in life, how you really want to live. "Honey, I don't want my life to always be directed by others. I want to make my own choice, just once. Do you understand?" With hope, she turned to look at Wang Yong, only to be met with the soft sound of his snoring. For some reason, Yenchio felt a surge of heartache. She looked up at the ceiling for a long time before finally raising her hand to wipe at her eyes. There's still an early morning tomorrow for vegetable buying, she reminded herself, and turned off the bedside lamp. Yanxiu rarely dreamed. After a long day's work, she'd usually sleep right through until dawn. But that night, she dreamed. In the dream, she was once again that small-town girl from 20 years ago. She was bright, with top grades, loved writing, and dreamed of entering a prestigious university to study Chinese literature, maybe even becoming a successful literary editor one day. All of it had shattered on the first day of the college entrance exam. Yanxiu had just left the exam hall. The Chinese test hadn't been too hard for her, especially the essay. She was confident she'd score high on it. If only a neighbor hadn't rushed over to tell her that her father had suffered an accident and was in the hospital. Yanxiu, it's not that I'm being heartless, her mother said through tears. The hospital needs 50,000 yuan up front for your father to keep receiving treatment. 50,000. If you don't marry Wang Yong, how could we possibly raise that money? Her mother's face was wet with tears. We've raised you for so many years without ever letting you suffer. Are you just going to watch your father die? Yanxiu couldn't bear the thought of watching her father die. Besides, Wang Yong wasn't a bad man. He was tall, good-looking, hard-working, and sincere. He had a stable job and a warm heart. If not for the fact that his wife had passed away and left him with a 3-year-old daughter, Yining, Yanxiu might not have even had this marriage opportunity. And more than that, he was willing to give 50,000 as a bride price, a significant sum in those days. If I marry you, could I maybe redo the year and take the exam again next year? Yanxiu looked at Wang Yong, hopeful. I didn't finish this year's exams, and I really want another chance at it. You really want to go to college that badly? Wang Yong asked. Yanxiu nodded. But I'm marrying because I need someone to help take care of Yining. Wang Yong's face showed his struggle. He glanced at Yanxiu, hesitant yet reluctant to disappoint her. Tell you what, I'll talk to my mom, and you wait for my answer. Thank you so much, Yanxiu said, grateful, almost ready to kneel. If you agree to let me go to college, I'll pay my own tuition and still take care of the house. You have my word. Wang Yong nodded and turned to go speak with his mother, Li Xiang. Yanxiu, worried, secretly followed behind. Not even half a minute later, she heard Li Xiang throwing things around the room. Oh, what did I do to deserve such a foolish son? She yelled, half crying, half scolding. You only have a middle school education, and you're working at the township office, but you're just a driver. If Yanxiu really goes to college, she'll find someone from the city. There's no shortage of good matches. Do you think she'll still look at you then? Settle down with you? What'll happen to our family then? What about Yining? Li Xiang slapped her own thigh and cried. I don't care. If you dare let her go to school, I'll go bang my head on their door. They take our bride price. We save her dad. And then she wants to betray us? Over my dead body. When Yanxiu awoke, her eyes stung slightly. What time is it? She asked. 4, Wang Yong whispered. If you're tired, go back to sleep. I'll heat up the leftovers. No, it's fine. I'll do it. Yanxiu got up, added some water to the leftover rice to make porridge, and hurried off with Wang Yong to the wholesale vegetable market. Picking out vegetables, weighing them, loading up the truck, and rushing back to open up their stall. By the time she caught her breath, it was already 10 in the morning. She pulled out her phone and searched for college entrance exam prep courses. Several well-known training centers popped up on the screen, some offering discounts, and others even with a free 7-day trial. Yanxiu picked a reputable-looking one and, crouching behind the stall, dialed the number, speaking in a hushed voice. For a student like yourself, with some gaps in foundation, we'd recommend our intensive, full immersion course, the consultant suggested after hearing Yanxiu's situation. It was the word student that caught her attention. To her, it was a title she hadn't worn in a long time. Over the years, she'd been Yining's mom, the Wang family's daughter-in-law, and just another vegetable vendor at the market. But she could still be a student. She clutched her chest, feeling a small fire reigniting inside. How much is the full immersion course? She asked. The consultant gave her a number. Yanxiu froze, stunned by how expensive the prep course was. She swallowed, blushing as her voice dropped even lower. Is there a discount? What are you trying to buy now? Spending money again. Before the consultant could reply, Li Xiang's voice came from behind her. Yanqiu quickly hung up and turned around to find her mother-in-law glaring at her, hands on her hips. Don't think I didn't hear. You're calling about some prep course. We don't have any students in this house. Even when Yining was in school, she didn't go to any prep classes. So who are you planning to waste my son's hard-earned money on? It's me, Yanqiu said, summoning her courage. Mom, I told Wang Yong last night. I want to take the college entrance exam. I want to go to university.
What?
College. Li Xiang froze for a full half-minute. She turned to exchange a glance with the curious neighbors gathered around the vegetable stalls, then burst into laughter. You, a vegetable seller, going to college? How much schooling have you had? Seriously? I did graduate from high school, Yanqiu said, her hand unconsciously gripping her pants. I was actually pretty good at studying back then. Sure, you graduated high school. Li Xiang cut her off disdainfully, but look at how old you are now. Colleges only want young people. Who would take you? Mom, nowadays even people in their 30s can take the entrance exam. Yanqiu tried to explain. Take what? You think college is something just anyone can get into? Li Xiang sneered, nearly rolling her eyes up to the sky. Let me tell you, my son doesn't work so hard for his money, just so you can squander it. I'm not, and I earn money too for the family. Give it a rest, Yanqiu. A neighbor from the stall next door, who got along with Yanqiu, nudged her with her elbow.
You've got a family, a job.
Why bother? My son studied all those years and only managed to get into a vocational college last year. Think you're going to outdo the young ones? Yeah, Yanqiu, said another woman from a nearby stall. And what good is college, really? Take my sister-in-law, for example. I've told you about her. She graduated this year, but couldn't find a job. I even offered for her to work the stalls with us, but she's too proud for that, so now she lives off my mother-in-law's pension. But Yanqiu bit her lip.
I could have gone to college back then.
If I don't try, there'll always be this regret inside me. Try? Li Xiang exploded again. What daughter-in-law acts like this? What is it? You won't settle down until you've burned through every penny of our savings. Mom. Wang Yong came back just then from delivering vegetables to a restaurant, catching the end of Li Xiang's rant. He pulled Yanqiu behind him, then leaned down to whisper to his mother. Mom, what are you doing? Everyone's watching. If there's something to discuss, we can do it at home. Me. Making a scene? Li Xiang shook him off and jabbed her finger in Yanqiu's face. If I don't put my foot down, she'll spend every cent we've saved for the family. Listen to me, Wang Yong. I refuse to let her spend our money on some prep course or university dream. If you go along with her, don't come to me as your mother anymore. Yanqiu went home, disheartened. She managed their small savings, but without Wang Yong's approval, she couldn't bring herself to spend even a cent. It's not that I won't pay for your tuition, Wang Yong told her later in private. But that money is to pay off the mortgage early. Once it's done, the house is truly ours, and isn't that what you wanted to? Yanqiu fell silent. Owning a home in the city, a place truly theirs, was indeed a long-held dream. And with mortgage rates so high, an elderly customer who often bought from her had warned that, if they didn't pay it off now, they might even face prepayment penalties later on. Maybe she could just buy some books and try to study on her own? For the humanities, sure, but she hadn't touched math or science in years. She doubted she could even understand the example problems. Even if you could, you can't pass on your own. On the phone, Zhang Xinran's voice was certain. Yanqiu, you have no idea how competitive the college entrance exams are now. High school seniors can't keep up, much less someone with less than a year to prepare. For someone like me in finance, it's all about ROI, return on investment. If you put in a few thousand for a return of new perspectives and a transformed way of thinking, ones that could change the course of your life, do you still think it's too expensive? Yanqiu went quiet. The last time she chose to give up on college, it felt like she was walking blindfolded through life, stumbling forward step by step. Would she let the second half of her life be just as aimless? Are you short on funds?
Shinran asked.
If I used up everything, I'd have enough. Yanchio's voice dropped to a whisper. But I get it. Shinran interrupted with a soft sigh on the other end. Here's what we'll do. I'll lend you the money for the prep course. I'm single with no big expenses, so whenever you can repay me is fine. Really? Yanchio's disbelief was clear. Shinran, I'll pay you back as soon as possible. I promise. That's not what matters. Shinran's tone turned serious. I still remember that spring afternoon, you working through calculations on paper while explaining problems to me. When I saw you at the reunion. Honestly, I felt quite conflicted. Shinran, Yanchio's voice grew hoarse, an unexpected lump forming in her throat. Everyone says I can't make it. And even if I somehow did, who'd want to hire a graduate at my age? Maybe that's true, Shinran laughed. But Yanchio, did we study back then just to land better jobs, or to meet some ideal partner? In the end, no matter what I do, the person I've always wanted to find is a better version of myself. What about you, Yanchio? This line seemed to ignite something within her, leaving Yanchio in tears, alone in the quiet hours of the night. She didn't know if it was too late or if she could even try. Yet, soon enough, Zhang Shinran transferred the money to her, and Yanchio bit the bullet and signed up for the prep class. However, since her mother-in-law Li Xiang adamantly opposed her attending classes in full-time sessions, Yanchio ultimately chose a commuting option. To minimize family friction, she prepared breakfast each morning, took the bus to her early sessions, and then rode the last bus home at night, staying up to wash Wang Yang's clothes. Even then, Li Xiang wasn't pleased. Coming home so late, can't even rely on her to pick up groceries, doesn't lift a finger with a business. People might think we're worshipping some high and mighty figure instead of a daughter-in-law. A week later, Yanchio had just entered the house when she overheard Li Xiang venting to some relative over the phone. "Mom, you're still awake?" she asked, pretending not to hear and heading to her room. And that's not all. Li Xiang raised her voice, glaring at her. "She's wasting electricity reading late into the night. Not only is it costly, but with the lights on, how can my son sleep well? My poor son, working tirelessly to support her, and not a single soul cares for him. Mom, that's unfair, isn't it?" Yanchio finally snapped. "I wake up earlier than Wang Yong. I cook breakfast, pack his lunch, and handle housework. Just because I don't help at the stand doesn't mean I don't care about him." "Cares?" Li Xiang ignored the person on the other end, nearly shouting, "If you truly cared, would you squander money like this? You say your friend lent it, but will my son end up paying it back?" "Mom." Wang Yong, hearing the noise, hurried out of the bedroom. "Yanchio and I agreed on this. She'll repay the loan once she starts working. Please let it go." "And you?" Li Xiang, seething, jabbed a finger at him, telling me to drop it. "You're so naive." She then turned on Yanchio. This Su Yanchio has never been one to settle down. "If she really goes to college, do you think she'll stay with you? Even if it were free, I still wouldn't allow it." Yanchio didn't wait to hear the rest. To be fair, she merely wanted to attend college. It wasn't about looking down on anyone or planning to leave Wang Yong. After so many years, he should understand that. Yet, to her surprise, the next morning on her way to class, her mother called, asking her to come home due to an urgent matter. Fearing for her father's weak heart, Yanchio quickly arranged for a leave of absence and took the next train home, worrying about how much she could spare if he needed stents. Upon entering, she found her parents safe and sound on the sofa. "So, you called me home just to stop me from taking this exam?" Yanchio held back her frustration, finally voicing the question. "We're not trying to stop you. It's just that at nearly 40, you still act on a whim like this. How can we, as parents, not step in?" Her father, Lao Su, sighed heavily. "Dad, how is wanting to go to college impulsive? If I were that reckless, I would have gone to college 20 years ago." Yanchio felt a surge of sadness. "Are you blaming us?" Lao Su's eyes reddened. "Back then, I failed you, but life moves on, and shouldn't you be realistic by now?" Your dad is right, her mother added, holding her hand. Yanxiu, you must accept your fate. Some people simply aren't meant to attend college. You're not young anymore, and now even Yingying is married. Why are you still stirring things up? Her husband takes good care of you. What more do you need? Mom, I'm not living just to get by. Then for what? Her mother cut her off. Getting married is for stability. Isn't college just a way to secure a better life? My advice, go back and get that tuition refunded. Focus on the vegetable stand with Wang Yong and save for the future. That's the only thing that truly matters. Yanxiu stumbled out of the house, skipping lunch. Yanxiu? At the roadside, Alexis stopped in front of her, and the window rolled down to reveal Zhang Xinran's face. What brings you here? Yanxiu asked, surprised. My mom tricked me into coming home. Zhang Xinran laughed bitterly. She's so obsessed with finding me a match. She's convinced that because I'm older, I should settle for some balding, middle-aged divorce.
And you?
Aren't you supposed to be in class? I was. Yanxiu sighed, explaining the whole situation. So, your parents don't get it either? Zhang Xinran shook her head.
Come on then, get in.
Let's go back together. Sisters in hardship. Though they joked, Yanxiu regarded Zhang Xinran as someone she deeply admired for her confidence and independence. If she could, she would also want to live her life on her own terms. But Li Xiang didn't see it that way. As they neared Yanxiu's neighborhood, they spotted her mother-in-law at the entrance, arms crossed like a soldier ready for battle. No wonder your mom called saying she couldn't talk sense into you. Li Xiang sneered, giving Zhang Xinran a disdainful once-over. So, someone's been putting ideas into your head. Auntie, I wouldn't call it putting ideas into her head. Zhang Xinran smiled calmly. Besides, Yanxiu married your son. She didn't sell herself to your family. Respecting and understanding her would reflect your values. But if that's not possible, then she has every right to make her own decisions. Decisions? Li Xiang, enraged by her audacity, glared at Zhang Xinran. Yanxiu lives off my son. What kind of decisions could she possibly make? Yanxiu stepped forward. Mom, that's just not fair. After I married Wang Yong, I've cooked, cleaned, cared for our child, and even took side jobs to help with bills. When have I ever lived off him? Right now, he is supporting you. Li Xiang snapped, spittle flying. So eager to go to school, but I've never seen you work so hard. You're nothing but a waste. Auntie, like I said, Yanxiu is not your family's servant, and you should respect her, Zhang Xinran said, suppressing an eye roll. Respect. Li Xiang scanned the small crowd that had gathered, proudly raising her chin. Zhang Xinran, isn't it true that you're almost 40 and still single? Maybe if you spent less time meddling in others' lives, you'd have better luck finding a man, though I doubt anyone wants a woman your age who can't even have kids. Yanxiu went home with reddened eyes.
She had her pride, too.
Behind closed doors, it was one thing if her mother-in-law, Li Xiang, threw fits. It was family business, after all. But to lose face like that in front of Zhang Xinran made her feel humiliated. Did Mom say something harsh again? Wang Yong noticed her distress the moment he got home from closing up shop. And this was why, despite everything, Yanxiu had never thought of leaving Wang Yong. Even after so many years of marriage, he still cared about her, even if he didn't always understand her. Yanxiu shared what had happened at home and, finally, about Zhang Xinran. Stop crying. Just focus on your studies. I'll go talk to Mom. Wang Yong reached over to wipe her tears, which made Yanxiu realize she'd been crying. But Li Xiang wasn't the type to be easily persuaded. She'd probably escalate to a full-on fit next. Wang Yong knew this, too. So he laid it all out plainly. Regardless of his mother's protests, he was going to support Yanxiu's decision to go back to school. You're just stubborn. Li Xiang, seething, raised her hand as if to strike him but stopped short, then began wiping away her own tears. I'm being the villain for whose sake? Exactly? And now you're siding with her. All because she's cast some kind of spell on you. I know, Mom. I know you're doing it for me, Wang Yong said, his head lowered. But all these years, I feel like I've wronged Yanxiu. Wronged hers? Li Xiang scoffed. Don't forget, if it weren't for us, her father wouldn't have survived. We saved her father's life. Yes, our family was better off back then. But later, when I had my accident, I lost my job, and we couldn't even have a child. She's gone her whole life without children of her own. Wang Yong wiped his eyes, too. Mom, we have to have a conscience. Yanxiu has never once complained. Now she has this one wish, to go to school. What's so wrong with that? It's not like we're starving with me selling vegetables. You? Li Xiang glared at him for a long moment before finally letting out a deep sigh. Fine. You just go on spoiling Su Yanxiu. Everyone knows you two have no kids. Don't come crying to me when she's off with someone else, and you're left with no one. Yanxiu knew none of this. But from that day on, while Li Xiang still wore a cold expression, she stopped with the passive-aggressive remarks. Sometimes, Yanxiu even came home after evening classes to find their laundry already done. It freed up more time for her studies. She'd once ranked in the top 3 of her class in high school, but her foundations had mostly faded over the years. Catching up would mean working twice as hard. Thankfully, Yanxiu wasn't afraid of hardship. From autumn to winter, and then into the spring, she got by on 4 hours of sleep each night, splashing water on her face to fight off sleep whenever she got too tired. Finally, in the first major assessment, she ranked in the top 10 of her remedial class. Her teachers said that if she could keep it up, she had a good chance of getting into a 211 university. Over dinner that night, she shared the exciting news with Wang Yong. Wow, a woman from a neighboring stall chimed in with a sarcastic tone. So you're really going to have a university student in the family? That's something. Wang Yong, all your hard work wasn't for nothing.
Exactly.
Wang's been working so hard alone. If she doesn't make it, who would that be fair to? Another vendor joined in. Who knows if she'll get in? Yanxiu, even if you go to college, don't turn into some female chinshimi. Another bystander cracked sunflower seeds as they spoke, stirring the pot. Don't go embarrassing us vendors at Xinghua Market. Yanxiu knew that her choice had already pushed the bounds of most people's understanding. She didn't expect them to understand. As long as things went smoothly, she could finish her exams in 2 months, and it would all be settled. But life rarely goes as planned. The next day, after class, Yanxiu came home to find her stepdaughter, Yingying, sitting on the sofa, her face pale. Mom, my mother-in-law twisted her back. She's still in the hospital. I'm about to give birth. What am I going to do? That was Yingying's first sentence. Yanxiu blinked, surprised. Your mother-in-law hurt her back? When did this happen? Yesterday, Yingying's husband answered, placing Yanxiu's bag aside as she set it down. My mom just wanted to wipe the dust off the chandelier, so she climbed up herself. But the stool wasn't sturdy, and He glanced at Yanxiu, looking uncomfortable. We'd agreed my mom would look after the baby, but now, even if she wanted to help, we're afraid she'd end up dropping the child. So, what are you saying? Yanxiu already knew the answer. Sure enough, Yingying and her husband exchanged a glance. Mom, you raised me all these years. Can you help me one more time? Look after me through my postpartum confinement. But my exams are coming up. All you care about are exams. Li Xiang's harsh voice cut off Yanxiu mid-sentence. Didn't you once say you treated Yingying as your own daughter? Now she's asking you for help, and you're acting all reluctant. Yanxiu was about to respond, but Wang Yong stepped forward, drawing her behind him, his face tense. Mom, say what you want about anything else, but you've seen how Yanxiu has treated Yingying all these years. How can you say something like that?
She's right, Grandma.
Mom has always treated me well. Yingying stepped forward, linking her arm with Yanxiu's. Yanxiu, already on the verge of tears, couldn't hold them back any longer as her eyes brimmed and overflowed. It's only because I'm worried. Li Xiang's tone softened, though her words were as sharp as ever. Yingying is due in a month. If she doesn't help out with the postpartum care, who will? If Yingying has any health issues during her confinement, would any mother not feel the pain? This is exactly what Yanxiu was worried about. Yingying had been with Yanxiu since she was 3 years old. They say it's hard to be a stepmother, especially when you're only 18. That's why Yanxiu treated Yingying with all her heart, and even Li Xiang couldn't find fault with that. Especially after Wang Yong had his accident and lost his ability to have children. It would be unfair to say that Yanxiu didn't care about Ying. But why did it have to be at this moment? She had worked so hard to reach this point, and if she took time off to care for the baby, it would mean sacrificing her study time. Even if she barely managed to take the college entrance exam, the outcome was obvious. In the end, Yanxiu said, "Let me think about it." That night, Ying stayed over, and the two of them squeezed into the same bed to talk as they used to. Ying asked, "Mom, why do you want to go to college so much now?" Yanxiu turned to her and said, "Do you think it's pointless for me to study at my age?" "Not exactly," Ying hesitated. "I just think studying is really hard, and even if you finish, you might still have to come back and sell vegetables. Even if I come back to sell vegetables, I still want to go to college." Yanxiu thought for a moment and added, "A classmate of mine once told me that everything we do now is too utilitarian, all for houses, cars, and money, without considering what we truly like." "Ying, I don't want to think too much right now. I just want to do something I enjoy. Will you support me?" Ying hesitated, then said softly, "I support you. But Mom, what about me? You're not really going to make me take care of the baby by myself, are you?" "I won't. I want to find someone to help you. A good confinement nanny." Yanxiu had a regular customer who often bought vegetables from her, and she worked as a confinement nanny. Yanxiu thought this person might be okay, but she didn't know if she would be available.
She would have to ask.
"But Mom, you know our income." Ying hugged Yanxiu's arm. "Nannies are really expensive now. If we hire one, our entire month's salary would go to her. How would we get by?" That was indeed a problem. Yanxiu had no money herself. The little they had saved was already used to pay off part of their mortgage. "There's a barbecue restaurant owner who still owes us 7,000 or 8,000 for vegetables," Yanxiu said, pursing her lips. "I can swallow my pride and ask him for the money. We're not ignoring our regular customers, but if something happens and we need money, he should understand." Yanxiu felt embarrassed. She had never pressed anyone for money before. This time, she had to muster a lot of courage. However, she never expected that the barbecue restaurant, which had been receiving vegetables just last week, would close down. She asked someone from a nearby small restaurant and found out that the owner had lost money gambling and couldn't even pay the rent, so the restaurant was shut down. That night, Yanxiu couldn't sleep, and 2 painful sores erupted on her tongue, making it painful to eat and drink. "Why don't I just borrow some monies?" Wang Yong said while smoking. "You just focus on your studies." Though he said that, Yanxiu wouldn't feel at ease until the issue was resolved. She asked around and finally learned the owner's address from one of his poker friends, waiting for him outside his house late at night. "What did you say?" "Vegetable money." When the barbecue restaurant owner heard Yanxiu's words, he shrugged. "My shop is closed. What money do you expect me to give you?" Seeing he was trying to avoid the issue, Yanxiu grew anxious. "The shop being closed is your problem. You can't just refuse to pay your debts. What evidence do you have that I owe you money?" At this point, the owner completely broke off any pretense and denied it outright. "You signed for it." Yanxiu pulled out 2 pieces of paper from her pocket. "I've been delivering vegetables to you for years, and you haven't paid for the last 3 months. You say you haven't been paid?"
Who believes that?
The owner pushed her aside and tried to open his door. "If someone comes waving around 2 pieces of paper demanding money, should I pay them?" "Hey, you can't be unreasonable," Yanxiu said, realizing that this money affected Ying's ability to hire a nanny. She couldn't hold back any longer and grabbed his arm. "We've known each other for so long. Letting you owe me is out of respect for our long-standing relationship. How can you be so dishonest? You filthy woman. Who are you calling dishonest?" The owner shoved Yanxiu away and pointed a finger at her nose. "Let me tell you, I'm not giving you a dime today.
Do what you want.
This is money for my vegetables. You have to give it to me." Yanxiu lunged at him. "If you don't give it to me, I won't leave. You think I'm afraid of you?" The owner grabbed Yanxiu's arm with one hand and raised a fist to punch her in the face. "You're just asking for it. Let's see if you dare to ask me for money again." When the police arrived, Yan Xiu was already bruised and bloodied, with her hands tightly clutching the man's pant leg. Seeing Yan Xiu like this at the police station, Wang Yang's eyes immediately turned red. Li Xiang opened her mouth to say something, but her son shot her a fierce glare, making her awkwardly close her mouth. Fortunately, they finally managed to get the money back. Nothing is more important than life, Wang Yong said, holding Yan Xiu's hand when they got home. What if something serious happens? I didn't think that far, Yan Xiu gasped. I just knew that if I had this money, I could study in peace. I've worked hard for so long. I don't want to give up now. It's my fault for not being capable, Wang Yong said, looking down, and after a long pause, he added, that year when I was in trouble, you didn't leave this family. I promise to treat you well for the rest of my life. Just focus on your studies. If my mom says anything about you again, just tell me. I'm on your side. Okay. Yan Xiu nodded, her eyelids growing heavier. Once she fell asleep, Wang Yong got up and went to Li Xiang's room. He said, Mom, don't say a word about Yan Xiu anymore. Whatever school she wants to apply to, she can. I'll sell my blood or my kidney to support her. You're only a middle school graduate. What if she really looks down on you in the future? Li Xiang glared at him. Wang Yong fell silent for a moment.
I accept it, he said.
I've already held Yan Xiu back for half her life. I can't keep holding her back.
You?
Li Xiang pointed at her son, taking a few deep breaths before finally relenting. Fine, do whatever you want. From now on, even if you treat your wife like a goddess, I won't interfere. Yan Xiu's life gradually returned to normal. A month later, Ying gave birth to a baby girl, weighing 6 pounds and 6 ounces. The confinement nanny was very professional, taking good care of both mother and child. Yan Xiu visited once and finally felt a sense of relief. The day the college entrance exam results came out, she was too nervous to check. In the end, it was Ying who looked it up online. Mom, you passed the first-tier university cutoff by 15 points. You're amazing. Ying rushed to the vegetable stall, hugging her mother and shouting like a child. Is that true? Yan Xiu couldn't believe it. Really?
Look.
Ying held up her phone. Yan Xiu really got in? To a first-tier university. A neighboring vendor couldn't believe it, craning her neck to see. Wang Yong, your wife is about to become a college student, another male vendor chimed in. Yan Xiu. Wang Yong looked at her, and only when she nodded did he suddenly stand up, his face flushed. Close the stall, he said. Ying, go buy some good wine and dishes. Let's go home and celebrate your mom. Invite your husband and in-laws too. Is that really necessary? Yan Xiu felt a bit embarrassed. Of course it is. Wang Yong squeezed her hand. We need to show everyone how great our Yan Xiu is. Let's see who dares to talk down to her in the future. What's so great about passing? Why should he be so happy? As the family of 3 walked away, the neighboring vendor scoffed. What if Yan Xiu gets into college and decides she doesn't want a lousy vegetable seller like him? What's wrong with selling vegetables? The male vendor laughed. Aren't you a vegetable seller too? I sell vegetables, but I don't have such high aspirations, the woman huffed, spraying water on the vegetable leaves. Just wait. With Yan Xiu's restless spirit, who knows what will happen? A country bumpkin thinking about rising to the top, dreaming. Of course, Yan Xiu didn't hear any of this, nor did she care. She only remembered Zhang Xinran saying that in life, one should always strive to meet a better version of oneself. And now, the better version of herself was waiting not far ahead. All she had to do was keep bravely moving forward.